Welcome to another episode of my podcast where we dive deep into the issues shaping our region and the world. Today's episode focuses on a crisis that refuses to fade, the Rohingya situation, once thought to be moving toward resolution, now spiraling into something more complex, more dangerous, while repatriation was promised. The ground reality tells a different story. New waves of Rohingya are entering in Bangladesh. The UN is calling for a humanitarian corridor. Armed conflict in Rakhine is intensifying, and Bangladesh finds itself caught between security concerns and diplomatic pressure. In this episode, we unpack the roots, the recent developments, and the geopolitical dimensions of a crisis that no longer fits into simple categories of refugee or humanitarian emergency is now a national and regional security challenge. The Rohingya crisis began on August 25th, 2017, a date that marks not just a turning point but a brutal reality. Myanmar's military crackdown in Rakhine forced hundreds of thousands of Rohingya refugees to flee into Bangladesh. While the global community initially took notice, more than 6 years later, the crisis has not abated. Rather, it has deepened. The influx has not stopped. New refugees are arriving, the UN is calling for humanitarian corridor, and Bangladesh is once again under pressure, not just humanitarian but strategic. The current situation reveals that clashes between Myanmar's junta and the Arakan army have intensified. Trapped between these warring factions, ordinary Rohingyas are fleeing in despair. Some cross the muddy terrain under the cover of night to enter Bangladesh. From the November 2023 to May 2025, over 118,000 Rohingyas have entered Bangladesh. That's an average of 220 people per day, or roughly 6,500 per month. Bangladesh now hosts over 1.151 million registered Rohingyas. About 90 children are born daily in the camps, adding nearly 30,000 annually. This is not only increases the humanitarian burden but poses a serious national security concern. The 27 camps in Cox's Bazar are undergoing strain. Amid this, the UNHCR has sent a letter to the Bangladesh government requesting accommodation for new arrivals. At the core of this letter lies a proposal to establish a humanitarian corridor with Myanmar, offering food, medicine, and shelter to Rohingya inside selected zones. But this suggestion has sharp, sparked sharp concerns in Bangladesh. Retired Major Imdadul Islam's warned that such a corridor could mask a larger strategic threat. According to him, this is not merely a humanitarian issue, it directly threatens national security, internal stability, and broader discipline. Similarly, Major General retired ANM Munir Zaman has cautioned that such a major policy shift requires parliamentary approval, something the interim government lacks. Making such a decision without consultation with major political parties could prove disastrous. UNHCR's proposal also raised concerns from Refugee Relief and Repatriation Commissioner Zillur Rahman, who points out that Rohingya influx spikes in tandem with intensified conflict in Rakhine. He revealed that the biggest surges occurred when BGB vigilance at the border was reduced. The border guard Bangladesh faces severe logistical limitations, lack of lights, surveillance equipment, and fencing. Under such conditions, BGB alone cannot secure the borders, and the Rohingyas know they will find refuge if they cross into Bangladesh. Adding further complexity is the recent controversial proposal by Bangladesh's Jamaat Islami to create an autonomous Rohingya state in Rakhine. The proposal was reportedly presented during a meeting with the Communist Party of China. Jamaat's Vice Amir Syed Abdullah Muhammad Tahir clarified that they envisioned a safe zone for Rohingya to return. However, Myanmar's junta has condemned the proposal, labeling it a violation of their sovereignty and accusing Jamaat exploiting China politically. According to the Irrawaddy, Myanmar still refers to Rohingya as Bengalis. denying their legitimate ethnic identity. This presents a dual threat. On one hand, Rohingyas are suffering a humanitarian catastrophe. On the other hand, Bangladesh is at risk of falling victim of international schemes and pressure. Chief Advisor Mohammad Yunus has acknowledged that more than 80,000 additional Rohingyas have entered the country in recent months. In March, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres visited the camps and shared iftar with Rohingyas, stating unequivocally, the solution must come from Myanmar. We will not stop until conditions for safe, voluntary, and dignified return are met. But how much progress has actually been made toward repatriation? Between 2018 and 2020, Bangladesh submitted a list of nearly 800,000 Rohingyas to Myanmar. The junta now claims to have identified 180,000 as eligible for return, with another 70,000 under review. This is the first concrete sign of repatriation, but Rakhine remains war-torn and unstable, making any real progress unlikely. On the ground, the Arakan army is reportedly targeting Rohingya communities under the pretext of flushing out ARSA members. Refugees like Amir Hossain, now in Chamtoli camp, recount harrowing tales of forced gatherings and threats of execution unless they name ARSA sympathizers. These incidents show that Rohingyas are no longer just victims, they have become central players in a wider conflict. Their movements into Bangladesh is no longer merely a humanitarian concern, it now intersects with geopolitics, strategy, and national security. Powers like China, India, Russia, and the US all have vested interests in Rakhine. A humanitarian corridor could become a conduit for foreign influence, posing strategic threats to Bangladesh. Meanwhile, Bangladesh continues to shoulder these burdens, relying on international sympathy. But with economic strains, political instability, and rising security threats, the key question remains how much longer? Balancing humanitarian responsibility with sovereignty and national security is now Bangladesh's greatest challenge. Weak border infrastructure, lack of political unity, duplicitous international actors, and Myanmar's broken promises have left Bangladesh to fight a lonely diplomatic battle. This is not just a refugee crisis, it's a fight to preserve national order and strategic standing. The time has come for Bangladesh to reassess the entire crisis, build political consensus, and launch stronger diplomatic pressure. Humanitarian corridors are not the solution. Repatriation is. It must be fast, safe, and sustainable. Otherwise, these crises will evolve beyond humanitarian tragedy and become a test of Bangladesh's sovereignty and regional stability. That's all for today's episode. What began as a humanitarian emergency has now evolved into a deep strategic dilemma for Bangladesh. The idea of a humanitarian corridor might sound compassionate, but without a clear strategy and consent from all stakeholders, it risks undermining national security and sovereignty. The only viable solution remains what was promised years ago: safe, voluntary, and sustainable repatriation. If you found this discussion insightful, please share it, follow our podcast, and join the conversation. We'll be back soon with another episode unpacking critical developments from our part of the world. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged.